At the dawn of the 20th century, the heroic age of Antarctic exploration was in full swing. Nations raced to conquer the last unexplored frontiers of Earth, driven by nationalism, scientific curiosity, and sheer human will. Among these explorers stood Sir Ernest Shackleton, a seasoned polar veteran who had previously served under Robert Falcon Scott and led his own Nimrod expedition in 1907. Though he came within 97 miles of the South Pole, he was forced to turn back. When Roald Amundsen finally reached the pole in 1911, Shackleton turned his gaze to a new, unclaimed prize, the first land crossing of the Antarctic continent, from the Weddell Sea to the Ross Sea, via the pole. Thus was born the Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition, backed by private donations, including funds from wealthy British patrons and the government. Shackleton purchased a sturdy Norwegian-built barkentine named Polaris, rechristened her Endurance, and assembled a crew of 28 men. Their mission was audacious, their leader resolute, the world watching. On August 8, 1914, as Europe teetered on the brink of war, Endurance departed from Plymouth. Shackleton offered his ship and crew to the British Admiralty for wartime service, but the First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Churchill, declined, urging him to proceed. After stops in Buenos Aires and the whaling stations of South Georgia Island, Endurance pushed into the Weddell Sea on December 5, 1914. From the start, the ice conditions were worse than anticipated. The ship wove through pack ice, her hull groaning under pressure. By January 19, 1915, Endurance became hopelessly trapped in the ice at latitude 76°34. The men could do nothing but wait for a thaw that never came. The sea froze solid around them. The drifting ice took the ship along with it, imprisoning her in a slow, merciless grip. Through the long Antarctic winter of 1915, the men endured darkness, bitter cold, and utter isolation. Shackleton kept morale high through routines, work assignments, dog races, lectures, and even theatrical performances. They hunted seals and penguins for fresh meat. Frank Hurley, the expedition's photographer, captured hauntingly beautiful images of Endurance trapped amid pressure ridges and frozen wastelands. But as spring arrived, the shifting ice began to crush the ship. The wooden hull buckled under pressure. On October 27, 1915, Shackleton gave the order to abandon ship. Endurance sank weeks later, now stranded on the ice with 3 lifeboats, tents, limited rations, and no hope of rescue. The men camped on a floe, hoping it would drift north. As the ice became increasingly unstable, Shackleton led a harrowing trek across the pack. Pulling heavily laden sledges and boats, the men struggled through tortured ice fields, open leads, and snowstorms. After days of grueling effort and little progress, they established Patience Camp and once again drifted. On April 9, 1916, their ice floes split beneath them. Shackleton ordered the boats launched. For 5 days, the men battled freezing seas, dehydration, and exhaustion as they navigated 100 miles of treacherous water. Finally, on April 15, they landed on Elephant Island, the first solid ground they had touched in over 497 days. It was uninhabited, remote, and outside shipping lanes. Rescue was still a fantasy. Survival demanded action. Shackleton realized that salvation lay 800 miles away at the whaling stations on South Georgia Island. With Frank Worsley, Tom Crean, Timothy McCarthy, John Vinson, and Harry McNish, he set sail in the 22-foot lifeboat James Caird, refitted for the journey. Departing on April 24, 1916, the 6 men faced the Southern Ocean at its most brutal: 60-foot waves, gale-force winds, freezing spray, and constant damp. Navigating by sextant through overcast skies, Worsley performed miracles of navigation. After 16 days at sea, they reached the southern coast of South Georgia, but they landed on the uninhabited side. With their bodies wrecked and no time to waste, Shackleton, Worsley, and Crean climbed over the island's unmapped, mountainous interior in 36 hours, a feat never before accomplished. On May 20, 1916, they staggered into the whaling station at Stromness. Shackleton was unrecognizable. Tears welled in the eyes of hardened whalers. He had done the impossible, but his work was not finished. Shackleton's first rescue attempt was thwarted by pack ice. 3 more efforts failed. It wasn't until August 30, 1916, that Shackleton, aboard the Chilean steamer Yelcho, finally broke through to Elephant Island. As he approached, he counted the figures on shore. All 22 men had survived. Not a life lost, he said later, tears choking his voice. They returned to a world at war. Their triumph was overshadowed by the horrors of World War I. But in time, the story of Endurance became a legendary tale of leadership, courage, and survival. Shackleton had promised his men he would get them home. He had kept that promise. The Endurance expedition is remembered not for its original goal, which was never achieved, but for the extraordinary resilience and unity of its men under unimaginable circumstances. Shackleton's leadership is studied in military academies and business schools alike. His decisions always prioritizing his men's lives over glory or ego set him apart from many other polar leaders. In 2022, over a century after it was lost, the wreck of Endurance was discovered in near pristine condition deep in the Weddell Sea. As researchers studied the frozen tomb of the ship, the story of Shackleton's epic journey was renewed for a new generation. It remains one of the greatest survival stories ever told, testament to endurance, in every sense of the word.